Okay, how to replace a trailer wheel bearing. So this is a job if you want to replace your trailer wheel bearings that you can totally do at home yourself. For DIYers, I'm not a DIYer, I'm Dean. I've been a mechanic for over 20 years professionally. This just happens to be my own trailer that I'm doing at home. So I'm going to show you how you can do this easily at home yourself. Okay, so first thing is confirming we have a stuffed wheel bearing on this wheel. So if I spin it, you'll hear that bit of a rumble in it, and also if you hold on to metal around there, you'll often feel a bit of a vibration coming through. But we can hear how noisy that is if I spin this other wheel. That one's right next to the camera and it's quiet. Okay, so if you just have a bit of play that way, that's something that you can actually adjust out of there. Okay, and we'll show you the adjustment obviously when we put this back together, but these bearings need replacing, so let's get into it. Right, so I'm not even going to undo the wheel nuts here. I just want to get this cap off. So just tapping it around with the hammer, and then I've got a split pin in here. Okay, so at this point I want us to note just how loose this nut actually is. So there's actually a little bit of play in there at the moment, but this nut is not tight. Okay, loose as. So if I'm just adjusting the wheel bearing, I want to adjust it up to just where that play comes out of it. Okay, which we'll show you again putting this back together, but it's just to prove that point. There's some people that think you need to do these up a lot tighter, but you don't. You'll end up cooking wheel bearings. Okay, so you can undo the nut with a pair of poly grips, a crescent, anything like that, that'll fit. Cool, and I've just got some basic paper towels here. I'm going to use those for my cleanup. Also going to use them to sit my greasy parts on so that they stay clean. Cool, and then I'm just going to pull that wheel. Front bearing will come out there. And the rear bearing will be held in by the seal housing. Okay, so that's part of our seal on this one here too. That can all come off. Wipe away all that old grease. This is why I like to use paper towels. You can use rags, but the beauty of paper towels is that you're just going to throw them out rather than covering a whole bunch of rags and grease. Okay, so there are different trailer wheel bearings that you'll see, but this is the most common type, which is just a cup and cone bearing, which are nice and easy to do. So part of the reason we leave them in the wheel is now it makes it easy for us to work with, because the wheel actually gives a bit of space for the bearings to come out. So first thing I'm going to do, I need to get rid of this seal here, which is actually a metal. This is actually a metal sleeve for the seal. So I'm actually just going to hit the old bearing and use the bearing itself to push that out. Or you can pry it out with a screwdriver, something like that, from the other side. That's shot out the back now. Okay, so all of these bearings will have numbers on them. Okay, and you'll have a number on the bearing itself, and also on the shell that the bearing runs in. And so if you don't know what trailer kit you're going to need, basically you need to get all those numbers together and find what the kit matches up to. So you basically pull all these shells and bearings out and then take them to be matched up to the right kit. We already know what our kit is just because we rang the people who built the trailer to ask them what they use so that we could pre-order it. Right. So we just want to clean away what we can in terms of all this grease in here. Alright, so now we need to get the shells themselves out. So we just want to use a punch that's got a sort of squared off end on it, so that we can get right in against the edges of these shells. Okay, and then we're going to come through from the opposite side. I'm going to reach right through. Quite often you'll get a couple of little cutouts in the side for your punch to fit into. We're just going to cut one side and then the other. Alright, that's that one out. Spin it around, do the other side. Okay, so that's now both of our shells out, and we'll have a bit more of a clean up. Alright, so if the grease in here was really dirty, we'd want to give it a full-on clean, you know, clean it with a solvent or something like that. But if the grease is clean, we can basically just wipe away the old stuff, and that will be sufficient. Okay, so what we're looking out for here is any wear in where these shells go. Okay, and you'll notice when you put the new one in, if it's loose in there, that would mean that you've got a worn hub, and you don't want that shell to be able to spin in there, because all it's going to do is more and more damage. So then you'd be replacing the hub. We'll have a look when we get back as well to show you what we'll look at on the stub axle as well. Okay, that's all nice and clean there now. Just to show you on these shells as well, don't know if it's focused, but see there's a number on there as well, LM67010. Okay, and that will be relevant to the bearing that goes into it, which is an LM67048. Cool, and that's the other part numbers that you're looking for to be able to match them up. We've got a new kit here. If I look at a larger bearing, okay, so I've got LM67048 and LM67010, so that's the right bearing. Cool. The seal kits on these one are what is known as a 3-piece seal. Okay, so we'll show you how to assemble that correctly when we get these bearings in. You want to match up your numbers on both sets of bearings, make sure they're right. Then we'll open that up. Now what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm just going to leave the bearing itself in the box so it stays clean. Cool, and I'm just going to work with the shell. What I need to do is I need to get this shell into here where the other one came from. Okay, so making sure of course the taper is facing out, so it's the right way for the bearing to fit into it. Cool. So in the workshop we have proper kits for knocking these in with, but you probably don't have those at home, so we're going to show you everything without special tools today. So we're just going to use our punch. Once we get in far enough that we're against this edge, we're going to start using the punch. Cool, and we're just on the edge of that bearing, Once you get it recessed in a bit, it's much easier. Cool, once it starts getting in there, you can hold the punch against the edge. Just go round and round. Cool, and as we reach the end, as it seats home, you'll hear the noise change. Cool, and then we flip it over to the other side. Cool, so now both those bearing shells are in there, and we're just going to have another quick clean of the shells there. Make sure there's no extra dust that's got in there. Cool, and then we can just block the top of it off, stop more dust getting in. Okay, you're going to need some new grease. I'm not promoting any particular brand here, this is just happens to be what I have at the moment. Cool, and again we would normally use a special tool for doing this in the workshop, but you're not going to have one of those if you're a DIY. They are a really handy tool. It's basically like a cup that's full of grease. You sit this in, push it down, it just pushes the grease through, which makes this much faster, but you can totally do it this way at home yourself. Okay, so I've put a clean pair of gloves on now. You don't have to wear gloves, you can do this on your bare hands. It's just gloves make clean up easier, basically. Long story short. Okay, so just going to put a wad of grease on there. Okay, and now from that back end, so the wider end of the bearing, I'm going to push that into the grease against my palm and just use the pressure of my palm against it to push that grease up into the bearing. Okay, and you'll see just here the grease has started to come through the front side. Okay, and that's what we want to do all the way around. Okay, make sure we've got it all the way around there. Okay, I don't have to worry about putting big smears of grease around the outside of it. We don't want too much grease there. Doesn't matter if there's a bit, but we don't want too much. Okay, and then what I'll do, I'll just sit this back in the box for a sec, so I can pick this up to show you what we're doing next. Okay, so in here, in between the shells, I want a bit of grease as well, just around the edges. So I'm just going to grab it with my fingers, just smear some grease around against those edges. It doesn't have to be heaps, it's just enough that it's going to catch any extra dirt or anything that's around in there, and just give it a bit of a coating around there. Cool, and then just don't want too much on our shell. And then that bearing is going to sit in there. Okay, and we're going to follow that up with our seal now. So I'll just cover my grease back up so no dirt gets in there. Okay, so sometimes you'll just get a seal that goes straight in, but with these 3-piece seals, this ring is what's going to go in first, and that's what's going to retain this bearing. Okay, and they're often hard to do going round like that, so what we want is something like a piece of wood that's going to fit right across there. Let's just cover it. Cool, so that is seated home now. The rest of that seal we're just going to leave out just for the minute while we pack our other bearing. Okay, so exact same as before, just a smaller version this time. I'll try and find a link for one of these, the things we use at work, I forget what they're called, for packing the grease and the bearings. If you're doing a lot of them, it definitely makes it a lot faster and easier. So if you're in a workshop or something, you might want to look at one of those. I'll try and find an Amazon link, which will be an affiliate link. Chuck it down in the description for you. But yeah, if you're just DIYing your own one at home, might as well just do this. Cool, so he's all packed. I'm going to sit him back in his box, and I'm going to put him over by the trailer where I'm going to put the wheel back on. Okay, and then we've got our washer and nut. We want to get those cleaned up. Again, if it was really dirty, I'd be using a solvent or something like that. You could use brake clean or something along those lines. Clean those, but they're pretty clean, so I'm just going to wipe the grease off. And then I will sit them back over where the wheel is going to go back on too. Okay, so I said before we were going to look at where you'd look for wear on here. Basically it's anywhere on the stub axle. This one is not that old actually, this trailer's about 7 years old, so it's clean as, and because the bearing hasn't been left for too long to be damaged. Normally it's when you get a really bad wheel bearing that it starts flogging these out, and the only thing really to do then is just to whack a whole new axle in it, because you got so much weld on there, you can't really just get that one out without cutting anything. So then it's another axle, which is a bit of a bigger job. Okay, so now we've got the other two pieces of our 3-piece seal. This metal ring goes on first, and there's a little lip there that sits against. Again, if you had a normal type of seal, you wouldn't have to worry about all of this, but these are a really common type of seal for trailers. Okay, and now what we want to do is get some rubber grease to fit in here between the very outer lip and that second one in. Okay, because that's where that's going to run on that metal sleeve in the back of our wheel, and they can squeak if they're too dry, but we need to use rubber grease that won't wreck the rubber like normal grease will. So just to show you here, hopefully you can see down there, but that's going to fit in here this way. Okay, so, and it's quite an easy fit to go in there, so we're just going to put that on here first. Okay, and then our wheel can go on. slide that in. Okay, and then our outer bearing and our washer and our nut. Okay, so it's basically just done up finger tight at the moment. I'm just going to have a quick look around the back, make sure that that seal is seated properly. Yep. And you know, like always, I've got an axle stand under there before you chuck your head under stuff. Cool. So that nut is basically just seated up, but not tight at all. And then we're going to spin the wheel and just let everything settle in. No load on it, nice and easy. Give it a good number of spins there. Let everything settle into the right place. You'll notice straight away it's quiet, not like before. Cool. And then what I want to do is I want to back this nut off until I get play back in it. So there's a bit of play there. So play pushing and pulling top and bottom of the wheel. You can feel it move. And I want to adjust this up until that play just disappears. Okay, that's an adjusted wheel bearing. Okay, now I need to get a split pin and fit it in here. So now you've sometimes got a bit of limitation about where the split pin will fit, which might mean you need to nip it up a little bit more or something like that. But that is basically an adjusted wheel bearing. Cool, so new split pin there. Always use a new split pin. If you find yourself in a situation you don't have one, using the old split pin is better than not using any at all, but then switch it out when you can get a new one. Just because of damage that we cause to that split pin when we take it out, we don't want it failing on us. And then letting that nut come undone, and then your wheel will fall off, which won't be fun. So we just need to make sure that no ends of this split pin are going to be able to rub on this cap, because see, this is fixed, the cap is going to turn, so if that touches this you'll get a grinding or a squealing noise. But after that, so with that split pin too, so see, I've just gone straight through, bent one tab back over on top and then cut the ends off. Okay, and then cap back on, clean up obviously any extra grease around there on your floor, and that is all done. One trailer wheel bearing, easy peasy. Okay, I hope this has helped you out today. Don't forget to click a like and a subscribe for more tips from Real Mechanics, and we'll see you in the next video.